With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories. St. Kitts Nevis embarks on e-government transformation with Cybernetica partnership. St. Kitts Nevis prioritizes climate resilient healthcare with new hospital build.
St. Kitts tourism officials make waves overseas.
Crime Without Borders, the fight against transnational and cybercrimes. St. Lucia activist pushes for youth-driven political change. Internationally, Saudi Arabia spearheads Arab alternative to Trump's Gaza plan. Now, the details. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis has solidified its commitment to digital innovation through a strategic partnership with Cybernetica, a move that will significantly advance the nation's e-government capabilities. The collaboration underscores the government's dedication to modernizing its infrastructure and enhancing citizen access to essential services through digital platforms. The initiative aligns with a broader national strategy to foster economic growth and improve governmental efficiency. The Honorable Conrad Maynard, Minister of ICT and Post, expressed enthusiasm for the new alliance and its potential to accelerate St. Kitts and Nevis's digital evolution.
As you would know, St. Kitts Nevis government has endeavored to pursue a whole of country digital transformation agenda, following on from consultancies that have been done in the past, analysis that has been done, and a whole of government strategy, which led us to the establishment of the Digital Transformation Management Unit.
Minister Maynard highlighted the government's proactive approach to digital reform. This comprehensive strategy builds upon previous assessments and consultations, demonstrating a structured and informed approach to implementing digital solutions. The Digital Transformation Management Unit, DTMU, led by Nigel Carty, will be pivotal in guiding the nation's digital journey. Minister Maynard emphasized Carty's expertise, noting
that is led by His Excellency Nigel Carty, who is a former Minister of ICT. So he is well versed and also an expert as well in the technology field. And we're very glad to have his expertise to help lead this mission. So he was Minister of ICT during his time in government, somewhere between 2004 and 2015, when he was a Minister of Government. And so he's leading the DTMU.
Carty's extensive background in ICT and government affairs makes him a key figure in ensuring the success of this transformative initiative. The establishment of the DTMU signifies the government's unwavering commitment to prioritizing digital transformation as a cornerstone of its national development agenda. The dedicated unit will oversee the implementation of various digital projects and initiatives, ensuring alignment with the overall strategic objectives. By centralizing digital efforts under the DTMU, the government aims to streamline processes, improve coordination, and maximize the impact of its digital investments. Minister Maynard further articulated the government's vision for the future, emphasizing the crucial role of digital transformation in enhancing economic prosperity and citizen empowerment.
So that creation of that unit signals the deliberate intention of the government to focus squarely on digital transformation. We see it not as just something that is nice to do or looks good, but essential for our economic well-being in the future, to make our government more efficient and make our services more accessible to our citizens and residents.
The partnership with Cybernetica and the establishment of the DTMU represents significant strides towards realizing this vision, promising a more digitally connected and prosperous St. Kitts and Nevis. In a proactive move to safeguard healthcare delivery against the escalating impacts of climate change, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, led by Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, has initiated the construction of a state-of-the-art, climate-smart JNF hospital. The ambitious project aims to address vulnerabilities within the nation's healthcare infrastructure, ensuring continuity of services even in the face of increasingly severe weather events. The Prime Minister emphasized the critical need for a resilient healthcare facility in light of recent regional disasters. Prime Minister Drew underscored the evolving rationale behind the hospital's development.
Why is it important for us to deliver a facility like this? Reasons have changed over time or have become more complex. Of course, the number one is to deliver excellent healthcare.
However, he stressed that the urgency of the project had been heightened by the tangible effects of climate change, referencing the destructive impact of storms in neighboring Grenadines. The Prime Minister's remarks highlight a broader concern for the region, where climate-related risks pose significant challenges to essential services. Reflecting on the vulnerability of existing infrastructure, Dr. Drew painted a stark scenario.
We see the storms that hit the Grenadines. You remember Beryl, that came early and was fierce. When I traveled to the Grenadines and visited the sites with the various prime ministers there, and you saw the destruction of the hospitals on those islands, they had a main hospital to transport all of their patients. Can you imagine if we are hit with such a hurricane that our hospital is so badly damaged, where are we going to put the patients from JNF? That is why this is almost an emergency.
The Prime Minister's sense of urgency underscores the potential catastrophe that could result from a direct hit on the current, less resilient JNF General Hospital, potentially crippling the nation's ability to provide medical care during a crisis. Further, the Prime Minister addressed considerations regarding the existing facility.
And for those who said we could have retrofit the JNF hospital, it is beyond that. We looked at that as well. The cost for it, and then the inefficiencies that will still persist because of its built and its layout. It was fit for purpose back then in 2001. But today, in 2025, 2026, 2027, we need a facility that will be fit for purpose at this time.
The Prime Minister's statement clarifies the government's rationale for opting for a new build, highlighting that retrofitting the current structure would be both economically impractical and ultimately insufficient in meeting the demands of a rapidly changing climate and growing healthcare needs. Climate-smart JNF General Hospital represents a significant investment in the future health and resilience of St. Kitts and Nevis. By prioritizing climate-resilient infrastructure, the government aims to safeguard its healthcare system, ensuring the well-being of its citizens in an era of increasing environmental uncertainty. This approach serves as a model for other small island developing states, SIDS, facing similar threats from climate change, demonstrating the importance of integrating climate resilience into essential public services.
A contingent from the Ministry of Tourism St. Kitts traveled to the Bahamas and Paradise Island for Roots Americas 2025. The event, the region's leading air service development forum, brings together senior industry professionals from airlines, airports, and destinations each year. The event, held from February 10 to 12, 2025, Roots Americas provided a platform for tourism officials in St. Kitts to build relationships with the global audience of air service development decision makers and experts. Leading the St. Kitts delegation was Marcia Henderson, Minister of Tourism. She was joined by Adiola Moore, Chief Executive Officer of the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority, SCASPA, Candice Kimmel, Airlift Consultant at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Kelly Fontanelle, Chief Executive Officer at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, and Ellison Tommy Thompson, Consultant at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority. The Caribbean Tourism Organization was pleased to have the St. Kitts delegates at the event. It said, quote, "Their presence underscores St. Kitts' proactive approach in strengthening partnerships, securing new airlift opportunities, and ensuring continued tourism growth. Great to see this powerhouse team in action," unquote. Roots Americas 2026 will take place in Brazil from March 3 to 5, 2026. Preceding Roots Americas 2025, St. Kitts took part in the airline marketing incentives and negotiations workshop designed for key tourism stakeholders. The island's participation signaled its commitment to enhancing its air travel industry and partnerships. Meanwhile, Dianelle Taylor-Williams, Director of the St. Kitts Ministry of Tourism and Chair of the award-winning Sustainable Destination Council, will be facilitating the CTO's upcoming webinar workshop with Sustainable Travel International on February 17, 2025. The topic is Sustainable Tourism in Action, Measuring and Reducing Carbon Footprints in the Caribbean. Taylor-Williams is expected to build on discussions from COP29 held in Azerbaijan. focusing on the implications of conducting destination-level carbon footprint measurements and challenges in data collection, and discussing how these insights can influence practical decision-making for a more sustainable tourism industry.
Regional leaders will convene in Barbados next week for the 48th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government, where pressing geopolitical issues will be high on the agenda. This meeting comes at a pivotal time as the Caribbean region faces mounting challenges, including U.S. imposed tariffs and reciprocal tariffs, and a rise in gun violence. Assistant Secretary General of CARICOM, Elizabeth Solomon, described the upcoming conference as a meeting of great interest.
This is the 48th meeting of the heads of government that's happening in Barbados. Is actually going to be a meeting of great interest. It's happening at a particularly interesting time for the hemisphere. And the discussions that the heads are going to have at this time will be quite critical to how the region decides to move forward on a number of issues. It's also important that the region comes together and has one voice on many issues.
Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley currently serves as chair of CARICOM and will lead the discussions.
And this is really an excellent opportunity under the guidance of Prime Minister Mottley, who has taken up the chairmanship as of the beginning of 2025. There's a lot happening this year.
CARICOM's Secretary General, Dr. Carla Barnett, stated that the meeting will assess progress on key areas essential for the region's survival and growth, including climate change, food and nutrition security, transportation, and free movement of CARICOM nationals. Dr. Barnett emphasized that regional leaders must address challenges arising from the rapidly shifting global landscape and develop strategies to strengthen regional integration, economic advancement, and social development. The conference will be held under the theme, Strength in Unity, Forging Caribbean Resilience, Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development. Dr. Barnett explained that, quote, this focus reflects our awareness that gains in economic integration, foreign policy coordination, and human and social development are under threat from climate change, crime and violence, and increasing global instability. Our response requires coordination, collaboration, and partnership, end quote. Several high-profile international and regional stakeholders will attend, including Antonio Gutierrez, Secretary General of the United Nations, and Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission.
In regional news, Crime Without Borders, the fight against transnational and cybercrimes, Television Jamaica reports.
Drug trafficking, arms trafficking, cyber crimes. These are transnational crimes highlighted at the National Security Ministry's Cyber Smart Conference. As Romardo Lyons reports, Jamaica has not been spared.
Crimes without borders. In essence, crimes done across multiple countries. Assistant Commissioner of Police Dr. Anthony McLaughlin is head of CTOC. He says through transactional crimes, small arms and light weapons continue to pose a major challenge in Jamaica. This, he added, is reflected in the country's murder rate.
We're looking at over 5.3 billion US dollars. Right. And, the list goes on and on.
He says lottery scamming has also evolved. Prior to 2018, players in lottery scamming would send money into Jamaica. Today, it's not necessarily money being sent.
What they do is to have a person within the United States, and they are going in the other Caribbean countries as well, and they remit those monies to Japan, where they buy used cars, and then they ship those used cars to Jamaica. So if you look, you would have seen a prevalence of used car dealers in Jamaica. That's one of the reasons. I'm not saying that's the main reason, but that's one of the reasons, because the monies cannot come to Jamaica again. It cannot come in barrels, in suitcase, and it cannot come through the remittance companies. So what they do is to send it through to Japan, where they would buy them vehicles and then send them here, then resell those vehicles to make their money.
It's the same with guns.
Most of the firearms that we find on the wharves are for gangs, but quite a number of them is for resale.
Now, cybercrimes have also been on the rise. Trevor Forrest, CEO of 876 Technology Solutions, says they're projected to reach a total value of $10 trillion this year. This is because more criminals are using advanced technology to target more unsuspecting people.
And they're using these innovative and nefarious ways to get it. So, phishing, where you get emails and other communications, whether it be on your computer, your mobile phone, is designed to extract stuff from you. And it's a lot easier to do that sitting in front of a computer in an AC room than going out and robbing a Brinks truck.
Ramarda Lyons, TVJ News.
St. Lucia activist pushes for youth-driven political change. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
Young people are the game changers. We are the ones who determine the outcome of this election.
Youth political activist Joshua Harrow speaking on the Newsmaker Live program representing the United Workers' Party. He emphasized how young people have the potential to positively change the image of politics in St. Lucia if given the opportunity. Harrow said that contrary to popular belief, young individuals are indeed very interested in politics and the country's development.
People will think that you're young, so you're not experienced. You have to wait until you're 40 and you this. No, because right now, the people who did that, they're causing the chaos right now. We are the solution. We are the antidepressant. We need to come in now to solve what's happening before all the chaos leads Helen to the Great Depression. So we need to receive our young people with open arms because they have the ideas. The question is, are you open-minded and willing to put your ego aside, your age aside, to listen to something new? Because many people put their age and their egos above their solutions and think that their age is validation for their own opinion and their own justification of why older people are much better than younger people.
Joshua Harrow discussed his political ambitions and interest in serving in government, revealing that he would possibly replace one of the current opposition senators.
I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm interested in the politics, especially the Ministry of Education. I hold that ministry dear to heart as a former youth parliamentarian who represented Ministry of Education in preposition and opposition. Now, I always say this, people, I'm not a politician. I am not a politician. I am a leader, and there is a difference. I do not have time for the antics, the back and forth, and all the nonsense. If you want drama, I suggest you watch HBO, BET, because I don't have any of it. I come to do a job and go about my business. Simple as that.
The youth political activist also explained why he chose to join the United Workers' Party instead of the incumbent St. Lucia Labour Party.
I've expressed my views when we were young leaders going to a conference at Big Gardens, and then Minister of Health Alvina Reynolds, we were hoping that she would have stayed there to listen to us, and we hadn't seen our minister for 2 days. I've gone through conferences with the then Minister of Education, Robert Lewis, and he showed that he did not want to listen to us, or when we asked questions, he was very dismissive on the matter. So, and there are several more instances like that. These are just a few. So it led me to believe that these individuals did not care. Now, the United Workers' Party was a bit different because I was embraced. I was embraced by Auntie Gail when I was hosting sports awards, and at the time it was at Convent. Not sports awards, youth sports awards, school sports awards, and I was embraced. Now, yes, people will question why did I choose, but it's from my personal experience that I was embraced by one party but not listened to by the next.
A former teacher and news reporter, Harrow articulated his vision for a transformative overhaul of the education system, which he firmly believes is pivotal to the overall progress and development of the nation. He emphasized the need for innovative teaching methods, a revamped curriculum that prioritizes critical thinking and creativity, and greater access to quality education for all children.
I'm not going to sit there and act like I'm one-sided. I'm going to hold the United Workers' Party accountable because these are not things that I have not mentioned even before I got into these positions at the last general elections. And again, this is where I say we cannot forsake our young people, because when you're the Minister of Education, you're still like a Minister of Youth, because these are young, predominantly young people you're dealing with, young teachers who are in the system. So this is now a wake-up call for both Flubbos and Labours to check themselves and understand that the education system is actually the backbone of St. Lucia. The education system does not make money. It's not a money-making ministry. So we have to now figure out how we're going to get the funds, what is the short-term, medium-term, and long-term development and investment into the education system, and how can we start to modernize our curriculum before we start modernizing our infrastructure.
According to Harrow, many young leaders are prepared to take on roles in the political arena and are equally qualified to contribute to the nation's development as their older counterparts.
So you cannot negate us, you cannot get rid of us. We are here and you are going to acknowledge us whether you like it or not. The question is, are we going to receive you with open arms, or we are going to receive you like we're on a battlefield?
The United Workers' Party has already announced one young candidate, Rosh Clark, for the Castries Central seat. An announcement regarding 8 new candidates is expected soon, and it is anticipated that this will reveal more young candidates on the UWP's roster. For the DBS News World, Zain Romulus reported.
We now bring you these international reports.
Saudi Arabia is spearheading efforts to draw up an Arab vision for Gaza's future, as an alternative to US President Donald Trump's plan for a Middle East Riviera cleared of Palestinians. 10 sources told Reuters the draft ideas will be discussed at a regional meeting in Riyadh this month. Arab states were aghast at Trump's plan to resettle Palestinians in Jordan and Egypt, which Cairo and Amman especially saw as deeply destabilizing. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS, had warm relations with Trump during the first administration, and he's central to Arab ties in the new Trump era. But the kingdom was angered by the US president's Gaza idea, which nixes its demand for a clear path to Palestinian statehood in return for normalizing Saudi ties with Israel. The death and destruction from Israel's bombardment of Gaza fueled Saudi public anger. And in November, the Crown Prince publicly accused Israel of genocide during an Islamic summit. One Arab government source said an Egyptian proposal was now emerging as frontrunner. It entails forming a national Palestinian committee to govern Gaza without Hamas. Gaza would be rebuilt with international and Gulf money, but without displacing Palestinians. There'd also be movement towards a two-state solution. That's according to 3 Egyptian security sources. A buffer zone and physical barrier would be erected to stop tunnels being built across Gaza's border with Egypt. As soon as rubble is removed, temporary living zones would be established. However, the most difficult issues around Gaza's governance, preventing Hamas playing a role, and internal security remain to be decided, an official said. Gulf states, which have historically paid for reconstruction in Gaza, have also said they don't want to do that again, without guarantees that Israel will leave standing what they rebuild. MBS is expanding Saudi Arabia's relationship with the United States through business and global power politics. Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund is holding a conference in Miami this month that Trump is expected to attend.
The Lebanese army has been moving into villages along the southern border as Israeli troops pull out. It's part of the ceasefire deal that ended the war between Hezbollah and Israel in November. With the help of UN peacekeeping troops, Lebanon is expected to keep Hezbollah away from Israel's border. Israel claims that still hasn't happened, and it is why it wants to hold on to 5 strategic locations just inside Lebanon after February 18, the deadline for its troops to withdraw.
Israel does not trust entirely the new political leadership that has come to power in Lebanon and wants to have the last word in the implementation of the terms of the ceasefire. And therefore, it keeps presence on that territory in order to surveil.
Israel has already missed an initial January deadline to withdraw. This doesn't help Lebanon's new leadership, which is trying to extend the state's authority. Under the ceasefire deal, it is also required to disarm Hezbollah, which was the most powerful actor in the country.
The smartest thing for the Israelis to do right now would be to end definitively the issue of occupied territories. Get out of Lebanon as per the international agreement, get out of the Sheba farms and northern Rajah and end this issue and allow the Lebanese state to fully try to control and to then also disarm Hezbollah.
An envoy from the Trump administration was in Beirut last week. Morgan Ortegas didn't use the word withdrawal, but redeployment, when she said the U.S. was committed to the February 18 deadline.
A ceasefire has been in place since late November, but Israeli strikes against what the army calls Hezbollah's military assets continue, and they are not expected to stop even after Israeli troops leave Lebanon. Israel has made that clear. It believes the truce agreement gives it the right to act against what it considers immediate threats posed by Hezbollah.
Hezbollah's fighting capacity has been affected by the war, but it continues to try to project strength through its supporters. Along some stretches of the border, they're seen driving with the group's flags in a message of defiance. But there is a new political order in Lebanon, and the ceasefire deal is not in Hezbollah's favor. Zena Khuder, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
Now to the Middle East, and Hamas has given the names of 3 hostages who it says will be released after mediators helped overcome the latest concerns of the ceasefire and hostage agreement with Israel. Yolande Nell has more on that.
There's been really a tense wait for these names to be published, and they've ended up coming out a bit earlier than expected. This after all the uncertainty around the Gaza ceasefire agreed last month and whether it would stick. Hamas and Islamic Jihad, the other Palestinian armed group in Gaza, say they have been holding these 3 men. They were all snatched from their homes on the 7th of October 2023, and they all lived in kibbutz Nir Oz in southern Israel. We have Yair Horn, who's 46. He is Argentinian Israeli, and he was taken with his brother Eitan into captivity. You have Sagi Dechelchen, who's 36, an American Israeli, and Alexandra Trufanov, who's 29, a Russian Israeli. And his mother, grandmother, and girlfriend were also held hostage, and they were released back in November 2023 in the first ceasefire of the war. Now, we've had a statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office confirming that these are the names that have been received, and Hamas has been saying it's expecting 369 Palestinian detainees and prisoners to be released in exchange for these 3 hostages.
Samuel Arian is Professor of Public Affairs and Director of Center for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Zayem University. He joins us from Istanbul. Sami, there's been so much concern these past several days about the fragility of the ceasefire, and many had worried it could collapse at any moment. With the release of these names of captives that are scheduled to be released on Saturday now, where do you think things stand?
Well, this is the 6th round. Tomorrow will be the 6th round where hostages or captives will be released. We have 16 Israelis that have already been released and 5 Thai workers. Tomorrow, another 3. That makes it 19. So I think we're on track to finish the first stage with 33 Israeli captives being released in exchange for 1,900 Palestinians, a little over 1,900. So I think as far as the first stage is concerned, we're on track. The problem hasn't been really the release of the captives or the hostages. The problem has been that the Israelis haven't been fulfilling their part of the bargain, which is to allow 600 trucks every day. They have been only allowing fewer than 100 a day, with the exception that once Hamas threatened that it will withhold the new round, they started accelerating these releases. Yesterday, there was over 800 trucks, and today also there are more than 600, which makes it easier to fulfill each part, their part of the bargain, which is to fulfill the parts of the first stage.
So, Sami, if you're talking about commitments going forward, I want to ask you about where you think things stand when it comes to phase 2 of the ceasefire, because what had been originally planned was, for now, discussions to be going forward about trying to implement phase 2 and negotiate the implementation of phase 2. So where do you think things stand with that?
Unfortunately, they were supposed to start on day 16th, and we've passed that last week. So we're a week into these negotiations that never started. And I think Netanyahu did not want to start it until he gets a green light from Trump, basically allowing him to resume the war whenever he thinks he could. But I don't think Trump allowed him to do that. And therefore, now the negotiations are in earnest. It's not clear what the final status would be. But I think the Americans, as well as the Palestinians and some Arab mediators, are trying to push this very hard. I think the bottom line is going to be what the American position would be if Israel wanted to resume the war, and whether Trump will give them a green light or not. Otherwise, we will go into the second phase. My prediction is that Trump does not need a war, does not want a war. He tried to actually stump Netanyahu when he was in Washington, telling him, what do you want? He said, I want to dislodge Hamas from Gaza. He said, I'm going to get every Palestinian out of Gaza, which Netanyahu, that's one reading of what he was trying to do. And therefore, I think we're going to get into the second stage. The question is whether we will end the second stage with a complete ceasefire or not, and complete withdrawal. That remains to be seen.
Sami, you're talking about U.S. President Donald Trump's stance thus far and how it has complicated things. And I want to ask you about the kind of rhetoric we've been hearing from Trump Trump since he took office at the start of his second term, where he's been talking about forcibly displacing Palestinians who live in Gaza. Now, in the last few weeks, you've heard more and more from Arab countries who have flatly rejected this idea. They've been unified in their stance. And yet, in the last 24 hours, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has indicated to American media outlets that they're still waiting to hear from Arab states on their plan going forward. What more do you think we are going to be hearing from Arabs, and what will the Americans be expecting from them?
I think that's Trump being Trump. If you go back to his book, The Art of the Deal, what he does is trying to shock the other side. And with his announcement, I think everybody who knows anything about the Middle East knows that whatever he's been saying has nothing to do with reality. There is no way that he could displace the Palestinians or expel them from their land in Gaza. He made that announcement in order to change the lines in which the Arabs would respond. So he wants Hamas to be out of Gaza, at least the leadership, not to be ruling Gaza. So he put a proposal that is unrealizable, hoping that the Arabs would come back with a definite plan in which there would be other means of the so-called the day after. So Hamas would not be part of the ruling of Gaza. And that's, of course, a tall order, because that's what Israel has been trying to do for 15 months with total destruction and killing and massacres, with starvation and the denial of all basic needs. But Trump is trying to get that without having to pay much price. I believe that we are into very difficult negotiations. At the end, Trump would have to realize that he may not be able to do what he wants, but he had to accept what the Arabs, which would basically be a reconstruction of Gaza with some role, not a prominent role, but with some role for Hamas, at least when it comes to security.
Menachem Klein is a professor of political science at Bar Ilan University. He joins us from West Jerusalem. Menachem, so this leg of the ceasefire is back on track and going to plan after 3 days of great uncertainty. How do you read the events of the past several days?
There was a debate in the Israeli cabinet, the decision makers, whether to break the agreement, resume the war or not. It led fortunately, it led to continue. It seems so that Israel will agree to continue. It will provide a list of Palestinian prisoners to be released tomorrow. There was a high pressure inside the Israeli administration to continue. Israeli public opinion put pressure to continue. Unlike Netanyahu's interest to stop the process to go back to war.
Menachem, this part of the ceasefire is also supposed to involve negotiations on phase 2, which involves the Israeli military withdrawal from Gaza. Is there any political appetite for this in Israel right now?
Political appetites exist only among the opposition or the very few opposition parties. The key question is whether the next stage must include the end of the war. Ending the war is against Netanyahu and his cabinet interest. They want to remain in power. They know that if the war ends, they face inquiry commission, early elections, and perhaps a new coalition. That's the key issue here. So we have to wait and see whether there is an agreement on the next stage or not.
Menachem, we've heard so much from Donald Trump these past few weeks when it comes to Gaza, whether it's his threat to, unleash hell if the captives weren't released, or also this idea of forcibly displacing Palestinians from Gaza. I want to ask you about the impact of Trump's comments on Israel's calculations going forward.
There are indications that Trump's idea came from Israel, from Prime Minister, from the office, from the cabinet. There are enough indications showing it. The discourse inside the Israeli public in social media is supporting the expulsion, supporting ethnic cleansing of Gaza. The mainstream, almost all, let's say about 90% of the Israeli Jews, they support ethnic cleansing. If it comes from Trump, they can say it's not me, it's Trump, but they support it. There is a big shift in Israeli public opinion. Once they denied the Nakba, they said, no, Nakba never exists. Now they say, Nakba, we are in favor of it.
All right, Menachem, let me ask you, when it comes to the public in Israel, what's the sense right now when it comes to the ceasefire? Do more people in the public in Israel want to see it continue?
They want to see it continue as long as there are Israeli hostages there. What will happen if all hostages are back at home, including soldiers and including the bodies of the killed soldiers and civilians, and then resuming the war? I assume that the Israeli public will support resuming the war under any excuse, regardless what the agreement says.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
St. Kitts Nevis embarks on e-government transformation with Cybernetica partnership. St. Kitts Nevis prioritizes climate-resilient healthcare with new hospital build.
St. Kitts tourism officials make waves overseas.
Crime Without Borders, the fight against transnational and cybercrimes. St. Lucia activist pushes for youth-driven political change. Internationally, Saudi Arabia spearheads Arab alternative to Trump's Gaza plan.
Thank you for listening.